the sources in the chat, whatever that means.
Your guess is as good as mine. I'm going to turn
No,
off.
if you say where it goes, where it says, I think if you go on share.
I have it already. It's on my screen.
Yeah, for me, it's not important because I don't read Hebrew. So
the pages are on my screen, Shaul.
yeah, you're displaying the page.
I think he's disappeared.
No. I touched the wrong button. Not very. Oh, you can make it bigger even. I see. Okay, Basena. Okay. Is it only the three of us? No, somebody else just came. Okay. So, but I can't see myself. Can you all see me?
Yeah.
I can see you, but I'm going to be moving away from the screen for a minute and just listening.
No.
So, I don't think I've gone anywhere. I'm right here.
Hide, non-view. I want gallery. Cut it out. Stop messing around. Okay.
Yeah, it's just us, I think.
There's other people, but I just don't have their video.
Oh.
I can't see anything. Oh yeah, there are. Yeah. Hi, welcome Roxana, and welcome Shulamit, and welcome Renata. Okay, so let's get started. I'm not figuring it out. Okay, anyway, but as long as that's emotional Chassidus, it's no, one of my children told a joke today. Oh, it only goes in Hebrew. Pick the most. It only works in Hebrew. Forget it. Here we go. Okay, so we're in Keter Shem Tov. Keter Shem Tov, and we're actually speaking about something connected with this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is about, the end of the portion is about God commanding Abraham to circumcise himself. So what is this idea of circumcision in a spiritual context? That's one of the things that we're going to discuss now. Also, the Baal Shem Tov is going to give over one of the main systems, not the main system, not one of them. Let me just close my door. Maybe it's the main system for personal change. Okay, he's going to describe it, and he's going to connect it to Mila. Just 1 second. Okay. So how does this begin? It says, here we get Kaf Ches Aleph. There's actually two parts to this Kaf Ches Aleph and Kaf Ches Beis. I think we're only going to get to Kaf Ches Aleph today. First section and the second section. It says everybody knows what it's written in the book Eitz Chaim. What is Eitz Chaim? The word Eitz Chaim means Eitz Chaim, the tree of life. Like we talked about 2 weeks ago, the tree of life. And what's the tree of life? The tree of life were the stolen writings of the Arizal. What does that mean, the stolen writings of the Arizal? Okay, so the Arizal lived in Sfas, 1570. Okay, he passed away when he was 38 years old. He appointed his student. His student was Chaim Vital, who he claimed over the entire 2 years that they were together. We spoke stories about Chaim Vital in the first few sessions that we learned. Chaim Vital was a genius person. He didn't believe in the Arizal, in Rabbi Luria, but Rabbi Luria literally drew him spiritually from Damascus to come to him in Sfas, okay, and why? So he could teach him, because the Arizal was told from heaven, from Eliyahu and Navi, that the purpose of his coming into the world was to educate one person. First of all, the lesson there is unbelievable. The whole reason, the greatest Kabbalist of all Jewish time, and he only came into the world to educate one person. His name was Chaim Vital, and it was Chaim Vital's job to be able to take, to learn from the Ari and to express it in a way that people could understand. Okay, and Chaim Vital didn't believe it. He couldn't accept that this was the whole purpose of this incredibly great man, that everybody in the world accepted this person was a tzaddik above all the other tzaddikim, that it was his only purpose was to teach him. And because of that, he demanded that there be 9 other students, or they called the Guri Ha'ari, the lion cubs. The Ari was called the lion, and there were the lion cubs, 9 other students, a million of students that would study with the Arizal. And in fact, it's inferred that held back the Mashiach coming. That if if Chaim Vital had really believed it and had focused himself completely on only understanding the Ari and only in his way expressing the ideas of the Ari, that would have brought the redemption. But because he didn't, and in the end, his ideas were affected by the ideas of all the other people, that held back coming Mashiach. I just want to say, I'm talking to myself. I'm not talking to anybody. How do I just figure out, how do I see all the people that are here? 1 second, let's see. Here, now I have it. Oh, there's 12 participants. Everybody welcome. Who didn't I say welcome to? Giti, Dara, welcome. Naomi, Dara. We're not, okay. Wendy, welcome. Okay, everybody welcome. How do I just want to see everybody. 1 second more. 1 second, I'm sorry. Fast, slower, no, clap is the wrong place. You know what? Maybe because everybody's video is turned off. Let's just try.
That's right.
1 second. 1 second.
Everybody's video is turned off. That's why.
Yeah, it's not letting me get to this thing. Okay, fine. Forget it. Okay. So he insisted to be 9 other students, and because of the 9 other students, the Chaim Vital's own sense of the power of the teachings of the Ari was watered down, was diluted, and therefore they held back the Mashiach coming. Another one of the outcomes was it took Chaim Vital over 20 years in order to take the teachings of basically a year and a half and to put them in writing. Those writings are called the 8 gates. The people in the world were so impatient to get these writings that one time when Chaim Vital was ill, they snuck into his study. They stole all of the writings. Somebody, I forget his name, had 100 scribes waiting in the next door town. They recopied everything and they got it back to Chaim Vital before he came back to his space, right? And they shouldn't have kapeda. He shouldn't have be angry at them. Those stolen writings became another entire set of the writings of the Arizal. It's called Eitz Chaim, Pre-Eitz Chaim. There was the first set, the 8 gates of the Shmona Sha'arim. That was the writings that Chaim Vital wrote, and then the others was called Pre-Eitz Chaim and Eitz Chaim. And so you might think, like, so who needs the stolen writings? They weren't the real thing. But what happened was, people were so anxious to get them. There were so many great Kabbalists in the world. They went through it and they went through it and they went through it and they refined it and they refined it and they edited it, and they literally came out with a perfect but different document. A perfect but different document. And so today we actually have 2 different sets, 2 different interpretations of the writings of the Ari, the writings of Chaim Vital that was again affected by the 9 students that he insisted they have, and the writings of the other Kabbalists. The main one was, his name was Tzemach, okay, and how they did it. Okay, they did it. So we're actually quoting now from Eitz Chaim. And again, Eitz Chaim means the tree of life, and it was it was a summary of the writings of the Ari Kadosh. And so there's a whole chapter there, what's called Chashmal. What Chashmal? Chashmal is the Hebrew word for electricity. Chashmal is also a word that's brought in the teachings of Yechezkel, in the prophecy of Yechezkel about the chariot. We speak many times about the chariot of Yechezkel, Merkava shel Yechezkel, Merkava with a later. We're not going to speak about it today, but it speaks there later about the form of a humanoid form, right, on a flaming chariot, and that's the whole idea of the connection of spiritual and physical. Okay, but it actually uses the word there of Chashmal. I'm just going to read it. It says Va'era v'hine ruach sa'ara bora min ha'tofan. And Va'era, and we saw Vihine, and there's coming a stormy wind that's coming from the north. Evil always enters from the north. First a stormy wind, then Anan Gadol, and a big cloud, then Ve'esh a flaming fire. The Noigalo Soviv, and around it is shining. Umitocham ke'en chachashmal, and within the cloud is this chashmal, right? What is this chashmal? We don't know what it is. Mitocha esh. Okay. Now, first of all, what's very interesting here, I don't think we've spoken about it before. There is in Jewish tradition this idea that the reason what was a person created for. One of the ways to understand what a person was created for, Olivia, a shliach, right? Dax, a person in business, and all the other Dara and Wendy and all the other people that Renata and all the other people that are with us. Okay, each of us is struggling to transform our part of the world. The part of the world that we can transform is called klipat noga. The klipa, the thing that separates us from the holiness, but that noga, that shines. Okay, there's another type of klipa that's called the shlosh klipas atameas, and they're actually described here in the pasuk. That's what's called the impure klipas. The impure klipas are the parts of the things that we can't transform. You know, it's like the Alcoholics Anonymous' prayer about, know that there are things I can change and know the things that I can't change, and to know the difference between one and the other. There are things we can't change. That's klipas tameos, the impure klipas, and the things that we can change are the klipas noga. And in this pasuk about Hashmal, it describes it names the different klipas. First, it says ruach sa'ara, the stormy wind. There's a negative wind and a positive wind. There's also everything that you have in purity, you have in purity. There's the impure stormy wind. There's the anana gadol, the cloud. Okay, cloud can either be a positive thing or a negative thing. They have cloud that hid the Oel Moed, the tent of meeting. There's also a cloud, an evil cloud, a negative cloud that hides the holiness. The Eish and the flaming fire. Okay, each one for good or for bad. In this case, is talking about the three impure klipas, and together with them is noga, the klipa of shining. That's the part of the world that we can transform. Okay, and in the middle of this whole thing is this chashmal. What is chashmal? So what? So it's not me saying this. I had to look it up myself. What is chashmal? So the chashmal was the Ben Yehuda, the geniuses who took the biblical Hebrew language and turned it into a modern language. They took the word chashmal, and that's what they used for the word electricity. Okay, so but what did the Tanoim and Amoraim? What does the Gemara say? The whole Gemara's thing was to understand the words of the Tanakh, of Torah, Nevi'im, Kesuvim, the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Kesuvim, and the writings. What do they say chashmal is? So they say this is all. I tell you, I looked it up, and you can, everybody, if you read Hebrew, fine. If you don't read Hebrew, look, it's in the Gemara, in the Talmud, Gemara Chagiga, the Yud Gimel Amud, the Yud Gimel at the bottom of Gimel and the beginning of the first. The Gimel has two sides, A and B. It's the bottom of A and the beginning of B, and it says there that what is chashmal? Actually, the word chashmal is a combination of two words. Chash means silent, and mal means speaking. Okay. Wow. So what does that mean? And it says the angels were chash. They were silent when God would speak, and when God would be silent, they would speak. In other words, like a dialogue between God and the angel. Chash mal. Okay. In another way, chash, like the intellect. Our intellect is silent. Our midos, our emotions, are speaking out, are expressing our intellect. Okay. So chashmal is that classic idea of being quiet before you speak. Sometimes when a person speaks, there are so many ideas. Lo matzati tov el shtika. The Talmud says, well, I wrote down a whole list of, where is it? Here. Says the Talmud says, say little and do a lot. It says, I didn't find anything better for the guf than silence. siyug, the boundary of wisdom is silence. Okay, eight lechashot ve'ech ledaber. There's time to be quiet and time to speak. So on the broadest level, chashmal is about thinking before you is about and we're going to come back to it. Thinking in the sense of when you're quiet before you speak, you separate between the silliness and the wisdom. Okay, when a person pauses before they speak, you say, "What do I want to say? What's important to say?" Okay, but that's on the most simple level. That's chashmal, right? Silence, speak, to separate between the silliness and the truth, and then to express the truth. Okay. So what's the connection? So look back to the first line. See what it says in these writings of the Arizal of mitzvahs Mila, of the commandment of Mila and Chashmal. Okay, Mila and Chashmal. Wait, what's going on here? What's the connection between circumcision and Chashmal? So again, if you think about it, circumcision is about taking off the foreskin that hides on the organ of procreation. Okay, and in a certain sense, there's a physical foreskin. The Torah also speaks about the foreskin of the heart. It speaks about the foreskin of the lips, or as it says, Moshe had orlat apeh, a foreskin on his lips. He couldn't express himself clearly. Okay, there's a physical foreskin, and that is analogous to our spiritual foreskin. That we have to take away the spiritual foreskin in order so there should be a clear expression. And that's, right, the inner dimension of chashmal. Chash, silence, mal, speaking. Silence, right, taking off the foreskin, removing the filter, right, and mal, and letting there be an expression. Okay, so that's one level. So he's speaking about that, about in general, about that's one of the things that a person does. Take away the filter, right? Think about that's not the clearest way to say it. In other words, to stop and think before you speak, to think before you act. Okay, to separate the impure from the pure, and to express or to act on the pure. That's what chashmal is, and that's how it's connected to the idea of mila. Mila is the physical action of removing the foreskin, and chashmal, silence and speaking, is the spiritual action of removing the foreskin. Okay, so now that's what it says in the Zohar, and that's what it says. That's what it says in connection to what it says in Kriyat Chaim. So now we're going to go into the Ariya Kadosh, into the Baal Shem Tov. So he says, "Venerally," or this is actually this is a quote from one of the students of the Baal Shem Tov, but so that's who's speaking. Venerally, he says, "Lahal bishadvarim," to enclose them, to give them a better way to understand it. This idea of taking away the foreskin, of the silence before the speaking, of the separating the good from the bad, and only then expressing it. He says we have this not just in our day-to-day life. That's the challenge of living. That's what life is all about. Is sur me'rava aseh tov, pushing away evil and doing good. No, we have that in every aspect of Torah, of tefillah, and of mitzvahs. Every part of a person's spiritual growth is connected with this concept of chashmal. This is what the circuit of chashmal is, and he's going to explain. The Kibalti Mimori, I received from my teacher Baal Shem Tov this idea. And this is a very, very famous idea that I want to say that I don't think I fully understood it I don't think I fully understood it now, but I certainly didn't fully understand it before I was preparing for this class. Okay, it says Soda Hachna'ah V'Havdalah V'Hamtaka. What do the words mean? Hachna'ah means to humble or to subjugate something. V'Achnia. We said it a few times over the holidays. We said it after we beat the aravot on the ground, the 5 aravot. You're not supposed to actually, according to the Yisrael, you're not supposed to beat them. You're supposed just to tap them on the ground of the willows. That through that we are machnia. We would subjugate the evil forces and transform it to good. So that's what the word hachna'ah means. The first step in any process of self-realization, of self-consciousness, is hachna'ah, subjugating the evil within us, subjugating the evil within anything. Okay. After that is the word of havdalah. Havdalah means separating. Hachnia is to subjugate, okay, to control it. Okay. After that is havdalah, is to separate it, to separate between the good and the bad. The bad, the evil, the tuma, the klipa, it nourishes itself from the good, and when we separate it, it starves. It has no way of yinika, no way of nourishment, and it loses its life force. Okay, so the first step is hachna'ah, to subjugate, to control the wild animal. Okay, and after we control the wild animal, is havdalah, to separate the good from the bad. Right, to put the good in its place and to let the good shine out. And after that, hamtaka, hamtaka means to sweeten, subjugate, separate, and sweeten. It's sort of like thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, sort of, but not exactly, because here it's subjugate, right, the negative, separate the good and the bad from the good, and let the good shine out. Hamtaka, to sweeten it. Okay, to sweeten it is to let the good. When we express the good, when we pushed away the evil, you have. I didn't even, now that we're talking about it, I didn't even get to this point of thinking about it. But you have a problem. A person has a problem. Right, and it's a person's obsessing about the problem, and the worst thing about it is it's stopping you from acting. It's not it's just completely filling you up. The first thing is say, stop it. Right, what is this? And to separate between the what's real and what's not real, to separate between the unholy and the holy. Okay, and to put the negative in its place and totally, and separate it, and let me be filled with an optimistic, a positive perspective, I can do it. I don't have to lose it. Okay, I'm not going to be controlled by those negative forces, right? And then you go and run with the positive forces. Let it fill you. Be immersed in it. Live it. Okay, this whole idea of I said I say it so many times. Are we just a body with a soul, or are we a soul with a body? Okay, if a person believes that the reason why the soul is the son of the king, and the king didn't want his child to grow up and be spoiled in the palace, so he sent him to a distant place where he wouldn't get everything he wanted, where it wouldn't be easy. And what was the purpose? That he should be able to live like a prince, even in this place where it was difficult. That's what the king wanted. If a person, okay, so when the world, like the flood of Noah, overwhelms us, all right, and we don't know whether to turn left or right, that's klipa, being yonik from the kedusha. That's the negative forces. I just had a grandchild, right? We just yesterday, to everybody, my daughter Layla had a baby daughter, okay, and it's our second child. Mother and baby are healthy, okay. Just Thursday night she gave birth, so she's here in the house now, okay, and the baby, the mother's living for the baby, right? And what do I mean? When Mushka wants to eat, Layla is going to feed her. And when Mushka goes to sleep, the Layla goes to sleep because there's nothing more important than feeding the baby. Okay, that's the idea of Yanika in a positive way, of drawing life force in a positive way. But there's drawing life force in a negative way. That's when the flood of Noah overwhelms us, and we can't think about what to do, what's right or wrong. We were obsessed with it. Okay, so the first thing is to put our foot down, is to let's subjugate the evil. What, I'm not gonna let this control me. Okay, I'm gonna lashtik from the word chash. I'm gonna silence it. Okay, silence all the things that are overwhelming me. Okay, the floods of material, the neurotic and madness that's part and parcel of the world we live in. I'm going to just quiet it. And then I'm going to realize that every single thing that happened is just to prove my strengths, to use the strengths that God gave me, right? And that's all it is to test me, like the son of the king, who the king's son or daughter of the king, who the king sent far away. So they shouldn't be living a life of ashlayot, of illusions, right? She should have a real world where they had to use their strengths, not like a spoiled brat in the palace. Okay, so the first thing is to silence the negative energy. That's the word hachna'ah, to subjugate it, to silence it, right? And the second level is havdalah, is to see the spiritual truth in my mind, just like Mila, right? Just like Mila cuts off the foreskin. I'm supposed to take away the orla, take away the thing that the klipa, the shell, the thing that hides my ability to see the truth. I should focus on the truth that I'm a vessel of incredible light. I'm a soul that has a body that's just there to transport me. It's not there to take me away from my spiritual service. I'm a person with unlimited potential. My biggest enemy is myself, and I'm not going to let that part of myself control me. That's the idea of Havdalah, to see the good and to separate it from the bad. And then finally, Hamtaka is to go for it, is to use it, to start right away, to act upon it, like we spoke about last week, to not to put it off, to not procrastinate. That procrastination is just more of the klipa. To do it right now. Okay, that's the idea of Hamtaka. So back inside. So that's the side. This is the Kabbalat Memory about Shem Tov I received from my teacher, that the idea of Chashmal again is Chashmal, right? Silence and then speaking, right? So he actually says, do they say it here? I'm going to say it outside. What it says, what does it mean, Chashmal? There's two different explanations of the word mal. Umalilu milu, we have in this, we see it when whoever sings the songs of the Arizal on Friday night. Umalilu milu, it's about speaking out the words, but mal also from the word mila means to cut, circumcision, to cut. So chash, it's really, when we see chashmal, we're supposed to really read it chash mal mal. Chash means to, like we said before, is to silence the negative energies, to push them away. Mal is to cut, to separate between the good and the bad. Okay, to see myself as who I truly am, the potential that I really have. Wait, and the third thing is hamtaka, is to sweeten it, is to transform, let's fix the world with the kingship of heaven. Okay, it's actually to hamtik is to sweeten the severities by actually doing it. Okay, right? Okay, by doing something about it, by acting on it, by speaking about it, by praising Hashem, by seeing the reality of the spiritual over the physical, by seeing my potential. And I want to say, I'm going to say now, I'm going to talk about myself also. It's not always completely possible to do it yourself. Sometimes it takes help. Sometimes you have to speak to a friend, right? Sometimes, some people might need a therapist, right, to help them separate between good and bad. What a blessing if you know that you need help. So many people don't know they need help. We all know people that don't know that they need help. Okay, so it's not always a simple process. This thing of quieting the demons, quieting the evil, the Yetzer Hara, the animal in me, the wild animal. Okay, if you can do it on your own, some people. This thing called mindfulness. I'm so into mindfulness recently about just meditating and calming the raging mind, and that calming the raging mind for 15, 20 minutes once a day gives you the whole day also to quiet that raging mind, okay? To silence the klipas, and then to separate between the good and the bad, and then to act upon it. Like I'm saying, if you can do it yourself, good. If you need to go to a Farbrengen or to a good class, if sometimes you need to spend an hour just immersing yourself in Torah, sometimes you need to write down all the things that are bothering you, and burn it up, put it in an ashtray and burn it up, or sometimes a person needs even counseling, even a good friend or even a professional person to discuss things with. Okay, be able to separate between the good and the bad, and then act on it. Okay, I'm too much already. I'm sorry to get carried away. Okay, so is anybody there? I hope so. Dax, are you there?
Yep,
Yeah, we're
we're all
here.
here.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so that's what he means. That's what the Baal Shem Tov said. I can't see anybody, so I don't know. Maybe everybody fell asleep. It says Sod Hachnoah v'Havdalah v'Hamtaka. This is the secret of Hachna'ah, Havdalah, v'Hamtaka. Now, how does that work? Now he's going to talk about it in the commandments, but the same process that we go through in a personal level of being able to realize our own potential through that 3-step process. That's true in every mitzvah also. Pushing away the evil, silencing the evil, separating between evil and good, like Mila, like circumcision, and then acting on the good. I'm going to give an example now.
Wow.
What? Wow, thank you. Okay, he says, so that's in a personal life, and the chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov is that it's in every single spiritual act that we do. Shetzorach b'kol esek Torah v'tefillah, in every single thing of Torah. Okay, this is the real secret. This is the real secret of Chashmal, okay, of silence and then speaking, of silencing the negative, separating mal, cutting between the good and the bad, separating between them, and mal, speaking out, expressing the good. Shetzorach lachashot ad mal v'kores aklipa. We have to silence this whole process of silencing the klipa ad shemal v'kor, until we cut away. Mal is cut away. The kores, and separate. It creases bris, of the klipa of the again. Klipa means very important word. The shell, the screen that hides holiness from us. Us Yamalel, then you should speak the Yedaber and speak out and this speaking out, this very important expression here. This is lematek hadinim b'shorsham. When we were even for a short time, we're controlled by evil, and we silence the evil force and separate them. And then we take the positive and we speak about it. And we literally, by speaking about the positive, okay, let's talk about it in terms of davening. By pushing away a person's extraneous thoughts, even negative thoughts, okay, pushing them away and focusing on the holiness. When you read the verses of the Tefillah, I praise be God. Call out his name. to make known to the nations his greatness, his great actions. Okay, when I push away the evil and I speak at the good, I am sweetening the severities in their source. That means I'm actually going back to those things that bothered me, and I'm transforming them into something positive. To sweeten, right? The dinim, a din is a law, but in this context, it means the limitations, the severity, bishrosham, in their source. I'm going back to the source. Again, we can talk about it. You have an enemy, right? You have an enemy. A person shouldn't have an enemy, but you have somebody you have a problem with, right? And he's giving you, that person is giving you a hard time, and you stop them, and you say, let's talk about it. Let's figure out what's going on. And when you take that person, you can convince them that what he perceived as such a terrible problem is not a problem, that you have his best in mind. You're going back to the source of that person's anger and discomfort, and you're transforming. That's what it means. I hope that's clear. Okay, that's the whole idea of chashmal, silencing the negative, cutting between the good and the bad, focusing on the good. When we focus on the good, we're actually going back and transforming the bad. Okay, that the next time we have to push away the evil to get to the good, it's not going to be as difficult. It's going to be much easier. And each time again that we do it, right, we're going to be clearer and clearer about it. But you need all three parts of the process: silencing the evil, separating between the evil and the good, and expressing the good as victorious over the evil. That sweetens the negative energy. Okay, so who's okay, again, where are we? The person has to silence, and then ad shemol, then has to cut away the negative. Then he has to speak out and express the positive side. And what does that do? That sweetens the severities in their source. It transforms the negative klipos into something positive. And each time that we go through this process, we see that it gets easier and easier. This is the sod of tefillah. This is the inner dimension, the real process of tefillah. When you start saying the words of tefillah, do you think that God is the boss? Do you think that God is everything? Do you think that all I want to do is to push away the evil and to come close to Hashem? No, it's that process of davening, of pushing away the evil thoughts, of focusing on the holy words of the prayer, of speaking it out as though I actually, not as though, I believe it. I'm living it. I'm living it now. That's the idea of subjugating, separating, and sweetening in davening. Two Surah Tefillah, Shabir Mori, that my teacher taught, B'Shem Rabbi, in the name of his teacher. Who is his teacher? Achia Shaloni was a prophet that was just like the Arizal had a spiritual teacher. His teacher was Eliyahu, a Navi. So also the Baal Shem Tov had a spiritual teacher. His teacher was the prophet Achia Shaloni. Okay, so that's why the he says here that tzaddikim are called Chassidut takla. What's machassid? The people had cut down they cut down the plantings in the field. In other words, they're the ones who cut away and separate between the negative and the positive. Okay, that's what's and he says, it says here that's the tzaddikim, the holy righteous. They are called the kotzrei hasoda. The soda is the Indian from the Shechina, right? And they cut away the unika, the negative energies that want to take nourishment from the Shechina. They cut them away. They separate the good from the bad, and then they express the good. Okay, but everybody has that power on their own level. We're on the end run here. Okay, I hope everybody has the place. We're about 2/3 through. It starts. I have a different edition than you have, but the kach, maybe I'll learn from here. No, that's silly. Okay, we're gonna keep going. In the same way that tzaddikim are called kotzrei hasodeh, the cutters of the field, the ones that separate the negative from the field, from the shechina, right? That everything is about that the negative powers want to yonik, want to take their nourishment from the shechina, from the spiritual power that's within each of us, and we have the ability to push it away and to silence them, to cut and separate them from the good, and to be totally focused on the good. The lokach sorech lahafrid. We have to. So in davening, how do we do that? In davening, right? We have to lahafrid mimachshavtoi. We have to separate from our thinking, machshavah, any negative thoughts. Those negative thoughts, even they seem innocuous, even they seem something. Oh, I remembered that I have to. In the middle of davening, I have to phone call. I have to call somebody. Or in the middle of davening, I remembered we ran out of milk. I have to go out and buy milk. In the middle of davening, you might say it's good things. Not good things. It's klipas that are trying to. So what do? I'm telling you what I was taught to do. You take a piece of paper, anything those things come, you write it down, okay, and then you forget about it because it's written down. You say you can't control me anymore. You make a note of it. Keep a pen in your pocket, a pen on the table, a piece of paper next to you. Put a post-it note inside your sitter, right? And you write down anything that's important that comes to thought. And if it's not important, all the more so. Push it out. Push it out. Every time you do that, you're silencing the klipos. You're separating between the bad. You're taking away the bad and focusing on the good. And then when you say the words of the field, they'll be much more stronger, much more powerful. You'll be really what you're really davening. What Perish Shemilis means that you should be. Perish Shemilis means the ultimate. What does Shulchan Aruch say? The ultimate of prayer is that you should daven with the Perish Shemilis, with the meanings of the words. What does that really mean? That what you're reading should be like you're speaking. You're talking to God. Okay. Ashrei Yoshev Esecha Od Haluch Selet, the Ashrei prayer in the middle of Sukkot Zimra. Happy are those who sit in your house. We will praise you always. It's not just a question of reading it; it's a question of being. Okay, and that's what it means lahafrid mimachshavto machshavah zaros, to push away all the negative thoughts, to get to a place where you've separated yourself the bad away, and you're only left with good, and you're focused on the good, and you're actually living it. You're living the good. You push away all the machshavas zoros, but al yedei through that gorem you cause lahavdil, to separate ulahafrish, right? Mehashchina haklipas, you separated from the shechina, from the indwelling of God in each of us, the klipas, the things, the negative energies that are trying to take their nourishment, to suck away our power. And in fact, it's really what happens when a person lets himself get obsessed, get worried, get concerned about things that at the wrong time when he's davening, or even at the right time, but he can't do anything about it. Okay, he's literally allowing the klipa, the negative energy, to suck away my spiritual power, and then you yourself become a shell. Not you, but a person becomes weaker and has no energy left. Okay, so the way to do it, we said, silence them, push away the evil thoughts, separate between the bad, leave only the good, and focus on the good, right? And you'll see that when a person does that, their whole day is different, right? That's what he says. Please look at those words. Gorem lahavdil, you cause. When a person pushes away the negative thoughts, okay, and again, it's the same thing with every mitzvah, with Torah, right? It's about pushing away the extraneous, focusing on the good and expressing it and living it, being imbued, being immersed in it, experiencing it as something visceral. You can do it. There's nobody that can't. You know what? I said before, some people need help to get there. Okay. And God bless, thank God that if a person sees they have that difficulty and they need to get help, one way, whether to go to a Farbrengen, to go to a friend, to go to a professional, to get to a place where you're not badgered by negative thoughts, but you're not badgered by klipa, where you're actually able to separate the klipa from the good. That's what the words say. Gorem lahavdil, you cause lahavdil, to separate, lefrosh, to make it the distance, lefrosh, to separate again, to separate and separate. mehashchina haklipos, from the truth, which is a shchina, which is our connection to Hashem, right? And the klipos, the negative energy. And so therefore, tevas mal, that we said in the word chashmal, it's sovel, base perushim. It has two different explanations, like we said. Chashmal, chash means silent. Mal, what does mal mean? Aleph, dibur, it's speaking. Ubase, krisis v'avdala, and the second is cutting and separating, right? V'zen nimshach mizeh, that the when you cut and separate, then the dibur, the experiencing it, the living it, the being immersed in it, is able to express itself. It says Sod Chashmal. This is the true secret of Chashmal. Boy, I want to thank everybody. I feel like I really understand it more than I did before. The special power, we see it. I don't know. I wish somebody would ask me some questions, but if we're going to stop in a minute now and we're going to ask questions. But I'm saying, you see the special power of speech. Sometimes when you speak something out, it has its own special power that you experience it in a much higher way. There's a certain spiritual power to speech. Sometimes you come up with an idea that wasn't even in your head before when you speak it out. But how does it happen? When you're immersed in the speaking. And how does that happen? When you push away the evil and separate it between the evil to only leave the good. And then when you speak it out, you tap into the Shekhinah to a higher level than you were before. So that's what it means. This Sod Chashmal, that's the secret of Chashmal, silence and speaking, or silence and cutting and speaking. So tzarech lahachris, we must, tzarech, that's the word it's an adamant necessity, lahachris haklipos, to cut away the evil. We don't have to live with our obsessions. We can cut away the evil, v'achar mal, dibur, and afterwards speak about them, the esek Torah, with the study of Torah, the tefillah and of davening, right? Shehi, that's the process of havdalah, of separating the bad from the good, v'hamtakta, and sweetening, which means to sweeten the negative in its mocker. When we live the spiritual life, we are transforming even the most subtle negative parts of our life into something positive. That's the section for today. Okay, thank you very much. Does
Thank you, Rabbi.
anybody have any questions? I didn't let anybody say a word for 45 minutes. I'm sorry.
Hi, Shalom. Thank you for such a beautiful shiur. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about the deepest forms of Jewish meditation that you have found, what those processes look like, what those practices look like for you.
Well, who's speaking? It doesn't say.
I'm Nomi.
It doesn't matter. Okay. Doesn't matter. So I there are so many people that are more. I can. You asked the question in the right way. I can only talk about what I can do, and what I do, which is I'm very much this process of hashmal, right? There's one of the first things that there was a very interesting story. It's about 50 years ago. There was a Jew. His name was Louis Jacobs. He was the president of Jews College in Great Britain, and usually it was that the person who was the president of Jews College would become the chief rabbi. And while he was the president of Jews College, he actually he had a problem with Emunah, his own Emunah, and he left there. And I actually wrote to him a few letters back and forth in the 70s, and he it was very beautiful. He was a very good writer, and he very much encouraged me to continue on my on my observant path, okay, and he had a very big effect on me. Okay, that was before I was completely observant myself. So one of the things in one of the books that he shared with me was that why are there so few testimonies about Jewish spiritual experience in Judaism? You know, do you find great rebbes talking about their mystical experiences? You know, people teach it, but they speak about their own personal experiences, and you don't find it so much. Why? Because we really we find it from last week's prayer portion from Bereishit, that we believe that speech creates something. Okay, so if you actually speak about something, if you're not very careful, you can give away some of that power to the outside. Okay, we're not talking about the type of speech that it's. Oh, and somebody sent a message. I don't know what, but 1 second, I'll look at it in a minute. So here we're speaking about when you're the speaking out, talking about in Torah and in Tefillah and in mitzvahs of expressing yourself. Here you're expressing yourself to Hashem, but when you express yourself to another person, there's a possibility of losing something. So of losing some of your strength. So I was also always really careful not to speak so much about my personal experiences. Okay, okay, but that being said, the last 6 months, I really have seen a transformation in myself because I always felt that I have it's very hard for me to control my mind. Okay, and davening to me was always a very, very big challenge, and it would take sometimes out. Ma, a sefer Masechet Hapanim. That was somebody. I don't know how to get rid of it. They said somebody said that this book is there it is. Oh, Shalom Aleichem. Okay. Now can anybody see me now?
We can all see you. The whole time we saw you.
Oh, I couldn't see you. Oh, I couldn't see myself. Okay. Wait, okay, something in the chat. So look in the chat. Wow. It's very nice to see everybody. Second. Look at all these people. All right. God bless everybody. Okay, let's go back.
Oh man.
So that being said, the last 6 months I had a transformative experience where I have a teacher, and they shared with me a certain technique, right? Where early in the morning, I actually practice pushing away extraneous thoughts, and I found that has had an incredible, and it's a technique called mindfulness, okay, and it's had an incredible effect on everything that I do during the day, not only my davening, not only when I work out, not only when I'm working on problem solving, all those things. And what does it mean? It means just you can look up mindfulness, especially Jewish mindfulness, on the internet, but you're just focusing on your breathing. It took me even a month or two to really get to that place, and it's brought me incredible success and clarity in other things that I do. So that's one thing that I practice mindfulness for 20 minutes very, very early every morning, and that's how after I say morning blessings, go to the mikveh, and there's a custom by Hasidic men, and then I sit down and I meditate. Okay, before I daven, then I have I have a couple of shir, a class, one that I teach, one that I give. Okay, and then before I actually start davening, I do what's called a contemplation, which is I take an idea, oftentimes from the Keter Shem Tov, and I think about that idea in my head, and I think, do I agree with it or not agree with it? And I think about what my problem with it, and I work it through in my head till I come to a place where I'm living that idea. And when I come to that place, then I start to daven. Okay, and that's the second. The third thing is what it says in the Shloah. That's an unbelievable thing, a technique. and then after this I'm finished. I hope this is what I'm not want you to hear, but I'm not going to say a word more after this about reading a pasuk with your eyes. I don't know if I spoke about this before, but reading even in English. Oh, by the way, there was a chat today, not a chat, on the WhatsApp in one of the groups I belong to. There was a woman who went to the Rebbe, and the woman said, Rebbe, I'm going to promise you I'm taking on doing chitas, even though my Hebrew is terrible. And the Rebbe answered her, you should know that you don't have to do chitas in Hebrew, you can do chitas in English, and has the same power as if you do it in Hebrew. Okay, so I take an idea, I think about it in my head. Do I agree with it? Not agree with it? I figure out if I. And then when I get to a place where part of me, I start to daven. And then when I daven, every couple of lines, I take a verse and I read it with my eyes before I say it with my mouth, and then I say it with my mouth, and then the words explode at you. They run in a way that was my experience. And where did I see that from? I learned it from a student of Shlomo Chaim Kesselman, and afterwards I saw it brought in the Shlom Kodesh in his Masechta Tomei. Okay. Anyway, that's it. That's enough talking about myself. Any other questions? Okay. So I want. What time is it? 11. I want to say we only did one of the two sections. The next section is connected, but it would take until 2:00 in the morning to finish it. And we also didn't do Lamed Zion, which was from last week. We only did half of last week. So next week we're going to do the second section of this week, and the section from last week is going to be a very exciting class. And I will tell you something. Even though it takes me an entire day to prepare for this 1 hour, it's such a geschmack for me, and I hope you'll all join me next week. Any other questions? No. Okay.
Hey, Rabbi.
Let's just say today we're going to end with one more geschmack of Vort. Most of you are still in the middle of Zion Cheshvan, 7th day of Cheshvan. 7th day of Cheshvan is a very special day, the day that people in Eretz Yisrael begin to pray for rain. In other words, on Simchas Torah, we started to pray for rain, but there's two places in the prayer that we ask for rain. One is in the second blessing of the Chaim Esim, and then it's in the 6 and 3, the eighth blessing, the Birchas Hashonim, it's called. We ask for rain a second time. In Eretz Yisrael, they asked for rain. They started asking for rain in the second blessing today. So there's two teachings there, and they're both beautiful. One shows on the Mesirat Nefesh, on the self-sacrifice of the Jews for the sake of their friends. They don't want it to rain on the Jews that came to Eretz Yisrael for the holidays, and so they wait 2 weeks after weeks, and when they start to pray for the rain, to let all of their friends get back to their home without getting rained on. Okay, so that shows that that I was mevater. I relinquished my rights to 2 weeks of rain, and it almost never rains in Israel during these days. I relinquished my rights to him for the sake of another Jewish person. That's one thing. I hope that was clear, right? And that's the power of every Jewish person. That every Jewish person is connected to every other Jewish person, and we're prepared to give up on our needs for the sake of somebody else. But the Rebbe said something unbelievable. He said at the end of yesterday in synagogue, we read about the Dor Hafloga. In other words, after the Mabul, there was a generation of people that forgot about that said, who's God? He should rule us. And they built this tower. They were challenging God. They were merida, rebelling against God. But there's another shot there. It wasn't just they were building a tower to rebel against God. It says, the Pasuk says, they wanted to all live together. Really, God wanted the people, mankind, to spread out, to transform the barren world into something to transform it from something wild into something beautiful and man-made. He to takin olam, to fix the world. He wanted each person to fix his part of the world, and they didn't want to. The Dor of Haflaga didn't want to leave their town. Okay, and so what did God do? He made each person speak a different language, 70 different languages. Okay, and they couldn't commute anymore. So automatically they had to separate because they would be fighting all the time because they couldn't communicate. He changed their languages. Okay, so the spiritual part is that when all the Jewish people come to the Yerushalayim for the high holidays, and then for the 2 weeks after the holidays, they're walking and they're walking to Nar Pras, to the Euphrates River, which is mamash the outer limits of the influence of Eretz Yisrael, and they cross over the Euphrates River. That means we ourselves are repairing the damage that was done by the generation of the Tower of Babel. We ourselves, the Jewish people, are showing that we're spreading out. We're going all over the world. We have Jews from California and Jews from Australia and Jews from New York and Jews from Eretz Yisrael. We are spreading out to fix, to transform our part of the world. Okay, and that's the beauty of Parshas of Zion Cheshvan, the 7th day of Cheshvan, and that's why it always follows after Parshas Noach, the reading of the book of the Parsha of Noach, where there it speaks about the people who rebelled and how we're fixing their sin now. Thank you very much.
Rabbi Leiter, there's a question in the chat. I don't know if you could
right. One
get
second.
to it.
Let's just see. How do I get to the chat? It says you cannot start screen. Okay, 1 second. Where do I go here? More. Chat. Oh, look at this. There's a lot of things there. I'm sorry. 1 second. Please, can you read my question? I got it. Okay, 1 second. Where is it? Here we go. 1 second. Oh, there's a lot of things here. First of all, Mazel Tov, your new grandchild. Thank you very much, whoever wrote that. Number 2, we're so happy and learning so. Okay, thank you very much. I also learned a lot from this class, more than you, I'm sure. Does the rabbi know if a man can be reincarnated, if a woman can? Yeah, men and women can be reincarnated. Yeah, it speaks about it in the Zohar. It speaks of I'm not sure what the question is. Yes, a person, reincarnation. It even says about the Baal Shem Tov. There's a story about the Baal Shem Tov. There's a story about a boy in Tzfas, and that he did something very special in his bar mitzvah, and the Elijah the prophet came to him on his bar mitzvah, and he said that I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to learn with you if you and give you incredible revelations if you'll just tell me what was that special thing that you did on your birthday, okay, on your bar mitzvah. And the boy said, no, I'm not going to tell you what I did on my. And he said, and it says, because of that, was that a good thing or a bad thing? It was a good thing, right? But it was also a certain arrogance, a bad thing. Okay, a good thing and a bad thing. Because of that, that soul had to be reincarnated, and that was the soul of the Baal Shem Tov. So yes, a man can be reincarnated. Now, a story about a woman being reincarnated. I can't think of a story, but there's no question that both men and women can be reincarnated. Okay, and next time we meet, I'm going to have a story about a woman being reincarnated. Okay, off topic. Hello, Rabbi.
And Rabbi Leiter, there's one more question connected to what you were saying at the end.
I'm going through them. Hello, Rabbi.
Oh, okay.
I'm Sylvia from Italy. Thank you. Oh, Sylvia. Okay, thank you very much. My pleasure. 1 second, please. Can you read my question? Toda Rabba. 1 second. But aren't we all supposed to come back to the land? Oh, okay. Can a man be reincarnated as a woman and vice versa? So yeah, so that I think I even said that whoever's asking you the question, I think we actually told that story in there's this famous story from the Arizal, okay? That the story was that there was a man once right? And he took a blessing from the Arizal to go to a distant city, right? And he went to a distant city, and he married a woman who was inherited a lot of money, and she was together. They were married and happily married for 6 months, and then she passed away. So after she passed away, he came back to Tzfas with all the money, and the Arizal explained to him that the woman that he married was actually a business partner of his in a previous lifetime, and who cheated him. And because he cheated him, that man was reincarnated as a woman. It's a very racy story, and that they lived together as husband and wife for a few months. That was to rectify the fact that he cheated him, he deceived him. Okay, and then he inherited all of the money, and he lived the rest of his life very, very comfortably because of what happened in a previous lifetime. So there's a story about a woman who was reincarnated, who was a man who was reincarnated as a woman. Okay, that's that. I hope that answers your question. Okay, anybody else? Thank God. Can you imagine? I keep those. It's a miracle that I had that story in my head. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Okay, so here
yes,
we
yeah.
are.
I mean, sorry, Rabbi Leiter, but you talked about the dispersal, that we all need to be dispersed, and that's a tikkun. And my question was, but aren't we all supposed to come from the four corners of the earth back to Eretz Yisrael?
That's said. So it says, that's what the Gemara says very clearly. There's 3 reasons why a person doesn't have to go back there to Yisrael. If he can't find a proper livelihood, if he can't a proper spouse, right? And if he can't find proper Torah. That's the reason why people right now don't have to move back. But that means that there's still aspects of the whole world that we have to be metak. By the way, you're talking to a person who I wanted to live outside of Israel, and the Rebbe told me, right? He told me I have to live in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, yeah, we're in that phase between the exile and the beginning of the redemption. Okay, right. So where people are beginning to come back, it doesn't mean that everybody can right now come back. There are some people, some people have elderly parents overseas. Some people have business interests if they can't bring them to Eretz Yisrael. Some people have the best chavrusa, the best learning partner, the best teacher they could ever imagine. Some people haven't found the right shidduch, and they don't think they'll find the right shidduch in Eretz Yisrael. There are still what's the point? The point is there are still reasons why a person has. Some people have, like Olivia has a shlichus, and Sylvia from Italy, has a family, and everybody has real reasons that mask on the truth. The truth is there's still things outside of Israel that we have to transform into holiness. Okay, that's the truth. And certain people, when they finish the things that they have to transform, let me come back. Some people, when they finish the things that they have to transform, then from heaven, or because the Rebbe said, or whatever the reason, I have parents that came to Israel because their children came, and children who came because their parents came, right? And people who came when they retired, people that came from the yeshiva. There's different people, right? Some people, they finish their tikkunim outside of Israel, and they come back to Eretz Yisrael. They come to Eretz Yisrael. But we're not at that point yet where everybody has to come, okay? Please God, Mashiach should come soon, and we will all fly to Eretz Yisrael on the wings of eagles. Okay. Anybody else?
Amen. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay. Shavuot Tov, everybody. Only good news. We'll see everybody next week.
Thank you so much. Thank
you.
You.
Who's here? Let's see. Wendy and Dax and Olivia.
Shakorach and Mazel Tov and your grandchild.
Thank you very much. Mushka, she's already giving us nachas, Baruch Hashem. Okay. I don't even know how to change this thing. Okay. I'm taking off. Laila Tov, Kulam. Take care.
Laila Tov.